Here we have another Vox AC30 hand wired that I've redone. All but 3 components on the board have been changed. All the pots and knobs have been changed. New Mercury Magnetics transformers all the way around. The difference between this and the previous AC30 from last week, hand wired from last week, is that this one has variable voltage, not a master volume. I'll get into that. And on this one, I've got a channel jumper switch installed here. I'll let you see it. So when this is down, stock, you have independent inputs for each channel. When it's up, these become the master inputs. You still have the high and low gain, but you can plug into here with this up and run into either or both channels. And the advantage of this over using a jumper cable is not just that you don't have to use a cable, but you actually, with the jumper cable, there's a slight bit of attenuation and high end loss that you get with that. With this, it's transparent. You're not losing any signal or any highs. So I'm going to start with the normal channel. The old bright switch is now a tight switch. And so when it's down, it has fuller lows, like in JMI era AC15. When it's up, it has tighter lows. It's not anemic. It's inspired by the non-top boost brilliant channel of this 1962 AC30, but it's not quite as anemic as that one can get. So it's the kind of thing where if you don't know that you're missing those lows, your ear kind of fills it in. And by eliminating some of the lows, it gives a perception that there are more highs and upper mids than there actually are. And it's really nice with, say, a neck pickup, a humbucker, or for certain modern country sounds, it's really nice. To get the most brightness out of this channel, you do need to have the cut turned down a little bit. The cut control, for those who have not used AC30s, works backwards to how we think. It's kind of like the tone control on your pot, only counterclockwise is brightest and clockwise is darkest. Alright, so then we have the top boost channel. And the top boost channel is straight out of the 1964-65 AC30. But I've added a bright switch here. It's in bright mode now. Takes the bright cap off this volume, so I'll play with it both ways. Why would you want to do that, you may ask? Well, with some overdrive pedals, that can get fizzy and a little bit over the top. So this smooths out the entire channel, but you still can control the treble. You can turn this off and turn the treble up to compensate a little bit, and still have a very bright amp. But you're not going to have that 5 to 10K stuff that's got to hiss with an overdrive pedal. Now their hot-cool switch in stock form is just over the top. When it goes to hot, the gain increases way too much. The nature of the channel falls apart. It gets really harsh and fizzy and upper mid-range. So I dial that gain increase back, but give you a really nice mid boost. And the conjunction of that is really pleasing, both as a boost or as just setting it as a different character mode for this channel, and you can adjust the gain. You can still get clean sounds out of it. here it gives it a boost in the frequencies, which kind of make it a little more martially, just put it that way. But it's not a huge radical change. And it's controlled by the foot switch like it is in stock form, only now you actually want to use it. In stock form, I think it's a marketing switch. Now, because these channels are jumpered internally, and this channel has been wired out of phase with this one, like it is on the JMIs, I can blend these channels, and as I turn this up, you're going to hear more lows come in, and you're going to hear the mids come down. So I'm going to do a couple different things. One, you focus on the lows, one on the mids, and how it affects the actual playing style. So when you have them both together like this, you're getting into kind of Fender territories. So that's another way this amp becomes much more versatile. You've got two different modes for the normal channel. You've got four different modes, if you count both switches, for the top boost channel, and then you can blend them together with a reverb or delay pedal. With this amp, you've essentially got a Fender in a pinch. You won't replace a twin for huge loud cleans, but in terms of the deluxe reverb, the super reverb sounds, this will do really well. Now let's talk about the tone cut. In stock form, this amp has a really cheap pot, a really cheap cap. Tack solder is not reliable, but it is the correct circuit. I just replaced this with a better pot, better cap, better wiring quality. But again, righty, dark, right is dark. Side note: if you play an AC15 Custom Classic, and it takes your head off, it's because they have it internally wired to be like this. Very few people who use AC30s run the top boost with a cut like that. Much more likely. So if you have an AC15 Custom Classic, if you have the way the bass pod is wired changed to the JMI, and I don't remember what resistor model name it is, but they have a 220K resistor taking the place of this pot, replace it with a 47K, and you're going to be very, very happy at the response. It just won't have that ice pick built into it. But I digress. To the variable voltage, which takes the place of the master volume. The variable voltage is both the most transparent way to attenuate the output of the amp. It's not attenuating any of the signals, it's just lowering the available voltage for the output tubes to do the amplification and the transformer. So it's like going from a 30-watt amp to a 3-watt amp. So as far as the tubes are concerned, there's no master volume in this amp. They're still on 10. But that doesn't sound as good there as it does here. The signal actually coming out of the speaker jack on this is the same here and here. What's happening is the speakers are no longer reacting as much because they're being driven much less hard down here. So they're not moving as much air, you're not getting much coloration from the speakers, and our ears do not hear linearly at low volumes. So it's called the Fletcher-Munson curve. So this low volume stuff, we're not hearing the highs and the lows as well. And the mid-range we still hear, so it sounds kind of... If you absolutely have to practice at this level, you can compensate by turning up the bass and treble a little bit. Though you're really never going to get anything great at this low volume. This is like less than a watt. It'll be more useful if you're doing the higher gain stuff in the channel. But realistically, if you're playing down at this level and you need to play at this level, get an acoustic guitar and play without a pick. Or get a little pod and some headphones just for late night practice. But starting about 9 o'clock, a little bit over 9 o'clock, the speaker begins to wake up. We begin to hear things more naturally. And that's just a nice place to be for home practice, where it may not be sleeping baby level, but it's about the level of a Princeton reverb as you'd use it in your house. So that's nice. The character of the amp comes through even at these very low levels. These speakers are very efficient. The blues that you may have with an AC30 are also very efficient. So this works really well for low level practice. Or he's playing a very small club. That's about as loud as a deluxe reverb on 3, which is a fairly typical place to use a deluxe reverb in a small club. So not only does it sound better than a master volume, but because you're actually turning down the operating conditions of the tubes, the preamp tubes and the preamp tubes and the output tubes will last a lot longer with variable voltage than they do with the master volume, where the tubes are always being run as hot as possible, even if you're not trying to get the maximum output from them. The heater voltage does not change with this setup, so it's not like using a Variac on a Marshall. You're not going to blow anything up. The heat dissipation is handled by my circuit. All heat sunk into the chassis. So if you have this amp and you say you use it 90% of the time at home or practice and you're in this range, your tubes are going to last a really long time. Then you get to a bigger stage and you crank this thing. Well, there's no difference between having this on 10 and having this out of the circuit. So speaking of out of the circuit, in stock form, this thing's got a master volume and a bypass switch. Well, we have a transparent output attenuation now with a voltage knob. We don't need to have a bypass for this. It's pointless. So I've given us an output mute. All right, set break. Go grab a beer. Come back. Or if you want to do a longer set break, mute it. Turn this down so the tubes run cooler. Everything's still warmed up. Come back on stage, turn it back up to wherever you want it, unmute it. Instant on. So this is better than any standby switch because you can mute the output and you can run everything really cold. I mean, if I were to play this right now, you're going to hear this. So it's like the world's greatest standby. The 30 watt, 15 watt switch I addressed in another video. I'm not going to go over that again other than to say that the 15 watt mode doesn't sound very good. And with this, you can get true 15 watt mode while the output tubes are still biased correctly. So don't mess with that, just you do this. Sorry, I want to Rick.